As we reported earlier this week, lawmakers on Capitol Hill recently held a hearing to revisit the implications of the FACE Act. One attorney who gave testimony pointed to more than the 100 recent attacks against pro-life pregnancy centers.
Yet despite these numerous attacks to life-affirming reproductive health facilities, the Department of Justice has indicted just 4 individuals under the FACE Act in the past year. More concerning is the response of
Jeremy Dice also said that many state attorneys general and even the FBI have been targeting pro-lifers for violations of the FACE Act while ignoring similar actions from pro-abortion groups. In response, Senator Jim Jordan threatened to withhold funding from the FBI. And we go now to Jeremy Dice, senior counsel for First Liberty Institute. Jeremy, great to have you back on. So tell us why you felt so compelled to give testimony on this.
Well, because the FACE Act is blind to ideology, and yet after a year of witnessing just horrific crimes against these life-affirming reproductive health facilities, pregnancy care centers, as we often know about them, the FBI has done very little to turn back even one individual. We've only seen 4 people indicted under a single indictment in the past year. So justice delayed has been justice denied for our friends in the pro-life community. But the FACE Act provides very real protections, and it is incumbent upon the Attorney General of the United States to direct his department to not only investigate these crimes, but then to return indictment after indictment to send a very clear message that if you're going to pick up a brick or a crowbar to express your political disagreement, you're going to be held accountable under the rule of law. And if we don't do that, then the rule of law itself is going to suffer drastically.
Jeremy, what were some of the things that you touched on or highlighted in your remarks?
Yeah, well, I reminded the Congress there that, we've had 2 very different experiences. Not only does the FACE Act require the Attorney General to do something about this, but it authorizes state attorneys general. And there's been a really big difference between the applications of that. In the state of Massachusetts, for instance, where multiple centers were vandalized with threats of Jane's revenge, and if abortion is not safe, neither are you, paint bombs and broken windows and all the like trying to intimidate these life-affirming reproductive health facilities. The Attorney General there not only did not use the FACE Act to prosecute these individuals, she actually set out to put out sanctions on these institutions that had been already vandalized. She didn't even so much as put out a tip line to seek information about the vandals that attacked these facilities. But the contrast is there in the state of Florida, where in Ashley Moody's office, the Attorney General for the state of Florida, once she knew the names of the individuals who had targeted these pro-life centers, she filed a lawsuit on behalf of the FACE Act seeking the maximum civil penalties available to her office under the FACE Act. That's how you hold people accountable to the rule of law.
As far as this congressional hearing itself, what stood out the most to you about it?
Well, I thought it was remarkable how some of the congressmen there were unaware that the pregnancy care centers, these life-affirming reproductive health centers, they actually do qualify for protection under the FACE Act. And some of them were rather upset that they would dare utilize the law that was, in their mind, meant to protect only abortion centers instead of these life-affirming reproductive health facilities. I was also surprised by one of my co-witnesses on the panel that was arrested at the point of several guns by the FBI in his own house for having defended his own son as they were peacefully protesting outside of an abortion center in Pennsylvania. And I think that shocking testimony ought to wake up the entire country to remind ourselves that when the FACE Act is there to be holding people accountable for their acts of intimidation and injury and interference with access to a reproductive health facility, that means everybody that engages in reproductive health, including life-affirming centers like these pregnancy care centers, they also deserve the protection of the law. When we try to move this in an inequitable direction, that's when the rule of law suffers and people are going to continue to be hurt. If the Attorney General Garland does not soon begin returning more and more indictments, what will happen is that more violence will spread, greater threats will be issued, and I fear what that would mean for these volunteers and staff of these centers who have already been harassed for the past year for doing nothing more than caring for women in their unplanned pregnancies. That should never be the case.
Jeremy, we have maybe 30 seconds left or so, but any final thoughts before I let you go?
Yeah, I'd encourage folks to go to firstliberty.org where they can read our lawsuit. After Attorney General Moody filed her lawsuit, that allowed us then to seek civil penalties on behalf of Heartbeat of Miami, where we sued Jane's Revenge for their intimidating efforts to shut that facility down. But all that starts with the Attorney General of the United States. It's incumbent upon him to direct the Department of Justice to use all of the resources to protect every American, not just those whom he agrees with politically.
We're going to leave it right there. Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on. Always appreciate your insights.
Thank you.